So this event has become a signature event for Commerce Lexington over the last several years. These events would not be possible without some very dedicated, committed, and longtime sponsors. Their support ensures that we're able to offer you first-class, first-rate events. So I want to acknowledge our sponsors. Hold your applause to the very end, and then we're going to hear from our presenting sponsor. Our presenting sponsor, as I mentioned earlier, was Kentucky American Water. Our platinum sponsors is Stahl, Keenan, Ogden, PLLC, and Steptoe and Johnson. Those are our two platinum sponsors. Our gold sponsors, AT&T, U.S. Bank, the University of Kentucky, Cumberland Valley National Bank. Those are our gold sponsors. Our silver sponsors, Blue & Company, Bluegrass Airport, Child Care Council, Fifth Third Bank, Kentucky Community and Technical College System, Kentucky Utilities Company, Ray Foley Hensley & Company, Sheehy & Associates, Stein Group, LLC, Sutherland & Associates, Traditional Bank, Travel Host of the Bluegrass. Those are our silver sponsors. And our small business sponsors, Babbage Co-Founder and Baird Government Solutions. Let's give all of our sponsors a round of applause and thank them. So I always ask this, if you're looking for someone that can fill a need for your business, always please take a look at our many sponsors because they're very dedicated and we appreciate what they do to invest and make us a better organization. We'd also like to present Kentucky American Water and have Keith Cartier to come up. He's Vice President of Operations for Kentucky American to make a few remarks. Keith.
Well, good morning, all. It's a little bit like deja vu for some of us in the room here last week. So I'll spare everybody the opening remarks and not repeat what we said last week. I do want to just say how proud we are to continue to sponsor these discussions. Again, the interest in this race, as I mentioned, extends beyond Kentucky, and a lot of folks are interested in the outcome. Secretary Grimes, thank you so much for giving your time today. I can imagine what your schedule is like. Thank you. The last thing I will ask, though, is on your tables you will find a survey. And I would ask that if you can take a few minutes and complete the survey. It's a partnership with Stein Group and Kentucky American Water, just seeking your feedback on a number of fronts. Without further comment, Bob, turn it back to you. Thank you again.
Thank you. Keith did make a good point there that this has been interesting. I've had a chance to do a little bit of traveling here in the last several months, and everybody's eyes seem to be on Kentucky. And everybody wants that inside track. What's going on? Who's going to win? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? So doing things 26 years, sometimes election cycles get a little monotonous. But let me tell you, not this year. So it's indeed an honor for me to introduce Secretary of State Alison Lundergan Grimes. She is Kentucky's 76th Secretary of State and currently the only female constitutional officer. Secretary Grimes has had a lifelong commitment to public service and, in particular, protecting the right to vote. She grew up canvassing Kentucky's precincts and counties to make sure all citizens had the right to vote on Election Day. Before being elected Secretary of State, Secretary Grimes worked for the National Kidney Foundation, focusing on local and federal health care initiatives. She has also worked as a successful business attorney in Lexington. In 2010, the Fayette County Bar Association recognized Secretary Grimes as its outstanding young lawyer for her demonstrated skill as an attorney and service to the court, her clients, and the community. Secretary Grimes has also worked with organizations such as the Salvation Army, Cardinal Hill Rehabilitation Hospital, and God's Pantry Food Bank, where she serves on the board of directors. After being elected in 2011 as Kentucky's Secretary of State, Secretary Grimes has helped modernize and streamline government services to make sure Kentucky's doors truly are open for small businesses. Her efforts, including establishing a one-stop business portal and a uniform business identification number, are helping businesses spend less time interacting with government and more time creating jobs and giving back to their communities. She and her husband, Andrew, live in downtown Lexington. Please join me in welcoming Secretary of State Alison Lundergan Grimes.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, guys. Well, good morning to each and every one of you. It is a pleasure to join you. They make me work before I get to sit down and enjoy any breakfast, but I do look forward, and please save me a plate. Thank you to the staff that's here today that's made this wonderful breakfast possibility, to Commerce Lexington, to bringing each and every one of us together this fine morning. 20 days, that's what we have left before us, and then I promise your TV screens will get back to some normality. I want to start this morning with you by sharing a story just several months ago. I had the pleasure and privilege to be at Fort Knox for a change of command ceremony, a momentous occasion as we saw Major General Smith pass the colors to Brigadier General Peggy Combs. History was being made. As the cannons sounded and the guns fired, chills literally went up my spine, not just as we were changing the colors, but as Kentucky installed its first ever female cadet commander at Fort Knox. And then Brigadier General Peggy Combs said these words. She said, "I'm not here to stay. I am here, however, to make a difference." That's why each and every one of you are a part of Commerce Lexington. That's why you have come together from organizations and businesses all across the Commonwealth of Kentucky and right here in Central Kentucky, is to try to make a difference. I stand here today, as Bob indicated, because of each and every one of you. Because in 2011, you showed up. I helped to lead our ticket, getting more votes than the governor got on election night, and stand here today as Kentucky's only statewide elected female constitutional officer. That is because of each and every one of you that are here in this room. And because of you, I go to work each morning before the sun rises to try to live out the words that Brigadier General Peggy Combs said, to try to make a difference in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. As Secretary of State, you watch out over all of the businesses that operate here in the Commonwealth, over 700,000 businesses, the chief business official. You also serve as the chief election official. There is a little election going on this year. Got the nation watching us. And the chief advocate for civic engagement. I've had the privilege to work with so many that are here in this room to truly keep Kentucky open for business. And my work, it wouldn't be possible without the dedicated servants, public servants that you have sent to Frankfort, that I've had the privilege to work with, like Senator R.J. Palmer. Give him a round of applause. Representative Reggie Thompson, who I just saw as we were coming in on his way back to Frankfort. These are individuals who have worked closely with me over the past several years to make sure we are moving Kentucky in the right direction. When it comes to the businesses of this state, I know from growing up in my grandparents' clothing store in Mason County, Kentucky, that they operated for over 40 years, the struggles that our business owners, especially small business owners, go through. And from day one, we've set out on a mission to make sure that they can go about doing what I know you do best, which is actually to create jobs instead of communicating with state government. My first interaction on the campaign trail was with a business owner who said, "Allison, I'm having so much trouble trying to file my occupational license tax forms because not only are there numerous jurisdictions, but there's no standard form, and I can't locate any of the forms." Our business owners were having to call, fax, drive to locate the form, and then hire CPAs to fill out the numerous forms, oftentimes paying a CPA more than was due and deserved in the tax to our state government. We went to work right away. And with folks like former Speaker of the House Jody Richards, we passed a bipartisan piece of legislation, my first session on the job, that helps to make sure we collected all those forms across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. They are now located in one centralized location on our one-stop portal. My job here today will be done if each of you from Commerce Lexington walk away repeating onestop.ky.gov. Can y'all say that with me? onestop.ky.gov. We're one of 12 states in the nation that has this online portal. It allows our business owners a 75% time savings in actually utilizing the portal. All the forms are located there, but better yet, the legislation that was passed, it's created a standard uniform form that we will be rolling out for business owners to utilize. That's what good government does. It helps to make the lives of the people here in Kentucky better. We've likewise worked to make sure that we are expanding our business entity options. We're helping our farmers grow their wheat and then bring in an investor to start a cooperative. That is good government. How many of y'all in here have more than one username and password? Raise your hand. It's no different for each of our business owners. And imagine the trouble that you have remembering just your personal information. Our business owners, you have passwords that are unique, not just to the Secretary of State's office, revenue. It goes throughout each agency in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. This past session, we passed a piece of legislation that helps to streamline that. It will be a unique identifier that, of course, will be used in conjunction with onestop.ky.gov, helping our business owners go about doing their job and communicating efficiently and effectively with government. This is what our legislators have been standing up and working with me as your Secretary of State on. Just as we've been trying to make sure that our state is open for business, we've been working hard to break down the barriers at the ballot box, to make sure that every eligible Kentuckian has the opportunity to have their voice heard 20 days from now. Worked very closely to make sure that those who are struggling to get their voice back, that they know that they have a Secretary of State, that they have a General Assembly, that they have people here in Kentucky that will rise up with them. I stand here before you today because coming out of court one day with my law firm, Stahl, Keen & Ogden, they were one of those sponsors today. Congrats, guys. They encouraged us to do work, pro bono work. And coming out of court one day, helping a victim of domestic violence, I realized that hopefully I could do more. I could do more to help the women across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. To continue in the words of my mama, who told my 4 sisters and I each day when we would leave for school, to make this the best day yet, I could do that. I went to work right away when we came into the Office of Secretary of State to try to help victims of domestic violence, ones that I stood with in the courtroom. I know how hard it was for them to even tell a judge where they lived to get that DVO or EPO that was necessary. Imagine the insecurity they feel when that information is available in the public records through your voter registration card. How many of y'all realized your address, your name, it's publicly available on your voter registration? We've passed, thanks to the work with our legislators, the first ever address confidentiality program that the Commonwealth of Kentucky has ever seen. It tells our victims of domestic violence they can be program participants, their names, their address redacted from publicly available voter registration cards. And importantly, this election cycle, this is the first election cycle that those program participants can actually vote and participate in our absentee process, should they not feel comfortable going to the polls on Election Day. That's what good government is all about. Here in Kentucky, we don't have a problem with people impersonating themselves as others at the polls. We've had a problem historically with people trying to buy votes with pills, dollar bills, and believe it or not, gravel. Our legislators worked with me to make sure that we could further protect the integrity of our elections and passed efforts to ensure that this election cycle, those that are participating in our absentee system, from our victims of domestic violence to many of you who may not be here in the county on Election Day, your names, your addresses. Previously, it was available to those that would request it prior to an election. People would feel pressure on how to vote, when to vote. We've now removed that with making sure that those that are asserting, especially for law enforcement purposes, for the protection that's needed, that if you're asserting that you're not going to be here in the county on election day, you're participating in our absentee process, your name, your information, it's no longer available prior to an election. It's only available after the election. Obviously, for transparency purposes, the number of those participating in our system, it's available for the media, and we continue, especially in our election preparedness efforts, to monitor the work that's been going on. But that is what good government is about. I had the opportunity in the course of serving Kentucky to be one of 5 secretaries of state to travel abroad, to visit with our soldiers, sailors, Marine, Airmen, Coast Guard, National Guard, to thank them for their selfless service and sacrifice. And when I arrived in the Middle East, the one question that they asked this chief election official repeatedly, does my vote actually count? I can't tell you how crushed my heart felt after we've done these efforts not just to help business, but to break down the barriers at the ballot box, helping victims of domestic violence, ensuring the integrity of our election. It was a question that no man or woman who puts on that uniform should ever have to ask, because they don't put that uniform on as a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. They put it on as an American, as a Kentuckian. I came back and we went to work, and in the effort to break down the barriers to ensure that those that are protecting that right that we will exercise 20 days from now, we have passed historic legislation, not just for Kentucky, but for the nation, leading the way with the first ever military heroes bill that Kentucky has ever seen, a bipartisan piece of legislation that President Robert Stivers helped to actually lead and champion through the Senate to the House. The members of the General Assembly stood up and said those that fight for us on the battlefield, they will have their voice heard at the ballot box. This is the first election cycle that this bill is in effect. And it tells our military they were able to register online electronically. That deadline has now passed. But they have also been able to request their ballot electronically and receive it electronically, enhancing the possibility and what we believe will be the probability and likelihood that the 300 ballots that didn't make it back in the prior election cycle in time to be counted by our military and overseas voters, that we will ensure we are increasing the likelihood and success of those that are fighting for that right having their voice heard this election cycle and future election cycles. That's what good government is all about. I come here today, though, with many hats. Most women do wear many hats, don't we? A wife, a daughter, a sister, Secretary of State, and yes, a U.S. Senate candidate. If you can't tell, I love my job as Secretary of State. It has afforded me the opportunity to work with some of the best and brightest here in the state, from our grandmamas down to our grandbabies. But I stand here before you today, continuing on the journey to try to make it the best day yet, to try to live out the words of Brigadier General Peggy Combs, to try to make a difference. We've made a difference here in Kentucky, especially in Frankfort, and I haven't done it by myself. No good job is ever done unilaterally. It takes a team. The work that we've been able to do, it's because we've reached out and worked with Republicans and Democrats and independents. We've brought people together. The partisan gridlock has been set aside. But that same cannot be said for Washington, D.C. Indeed, the gridlock, the obstruction, the extreme fighting and partisanship, it's had negative consequences right here in Kentucky that our business owners have felt. It's prevented us from making critical investments in infrastructure, in agriculture, manufacturing, research and development. The list can go on and on. I stand here before you today in an effort to make a difference because we've had someone in Washington who didn't realize they were there to make a difference. He thinks he's just there to stay. He just is looking for a self-promotion. That's not the words of Brigadier General Peggy Combs. That's not what Kentucky needs. It's not what Kentucky deserves. You only have to look out to the Kentuckians across this state that I've had the privilege to meet to know we deserve better. It's the mama that gets up at 6 a.m. to work 2 jobs to put food on the table for her 6-month-old. She's not making ends meet because not only does she have a senator that doesn't want to help her earn a living wage, but one that says equal pay for equal work, that's preferential treatment. Or the veteran down in West Kentucky who I met that said, Allison, I'm not looking for special treatment. I just want a senator that will help me get treatment. Not one that has voted time and time again against the interest of our veterans, not enabling employers to actually give them incentive to be hired or give them the benefits they're due when they come back from laying their life on the line for our nation. Or the man who has had a great job as a Boilermaker. He has literally gotten married, purchased a home, had 3 children as a result of a good-paying job here in Kentucky that he's now seen eliminated. He told me, Allison, I can't put my suitcase in the yard sale because I'm going to have it to go out of state to find work. Or the college student who I sat across from who told me his dad just lost his job and the ability for him to go to college, to be able to afford to go to college. Well, he's worried about that because we don't have a senator that wants to actually expand and strengthen Pell Grants. Or the graduate from Boyle County who works at Center College. Her and her husband both have great jobs. They have 2 kids, a third on the way. They're still struggling with student loan debt. They have student loan debt higher than their mortgage, and they can't make the investment in the house that they want to buy for the 3rd child that's on the way. That's why I stand here before you today. That's why, for the past 15 months, I've put on my heels every morning and gone to fight for the people of Kentucky because we deserve someone that wants to fight for them, someone that realizes we are given the privilege to serve, to hopefully make the lives of others, not ourselves and not millionaires and billionaires, but others here in this state better. We deserve better. I've seen the doors opened, especially for business, with youngsters like Elliott Smith, who is a high schooler. He got an award from the Secretary of State's office. He's used it to create a company called Dream Strings. It takes instruments that are discarded, refurbishes them, and gives them to children in need. I've seen our young farmers, a middle schooler by the name of Joe Bremer, realize his potential. As a result, we've done with opening the business laws here in Kentucky. He's now taking the goat milk from his family farm and creating soap, Joe's Bars and Suds. I know the potential of this state because I know its people. They are our strength. Together, we can move this state, we can move this nation in the right direction, but it requires someone that has heard the words of Brigadier General Peggy Combs. It requires someone that knows each of us are in a position to either carry the torch for ourselves, to put it out, or to help light the way for others. I've been trying to light the way for others, and with the help of so many of you in this room, we've done that successfully over the past several years. We can bring the change that's needed to Washington, but it's going to require us to change our senator. After 30 years, Kentucky deserves someone that knows this state through and through, that will show up and speak up, and most importantly, get government to actually work for the Commonwealth. The jobs plan that we have been talking about for over the course of the past 15 months, you helped to put this together. It's a plan based on helping to grow our middle class and put hardworking Kentuckians back to work. This is what Washington has been missing. This is what Washington lost sight of a long time ago. How to help the folks like Joe Bremer and Elliott Smith, or Veronica, who is in Hardin County, waiting for her husband, Master Sergeant Willie Oden, to come back from serving abroad, cutting hair as fast as she can, wanting someone that realizes the struggles that our military families, 340,000 vets here in this state, they are going through. We can do this. We will do this 20 days from now. But it requires each and every one of you here in this room to rise up with me. In the words of Brigadier General Peggy Combs, and together to continue to move forward to try to make a difference, not just for the businesses here in Kentucky, but for the people of this state, for the people of this nation. Together, we can break through the gridlock. Together, we can finally get Washington working again. Thank you, guys, very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Sure. So my hope is that breakfast has energized you so much. You've got questions that Bill Goodman didn't get to fire at me the other night on KET, that hopefully we can have a few moments to discuss. I know you're all not going to be that shy. Yeah. And feel free to stand up.
Madam Secretary, thank you for being here. I have two questions.
Sure.
Since you were talking about voter rights, I've been voting in Kentucky for 50 years, since I was 18. And I've always felt that it was my responsibility to show the registrar who I was. I was appalled to learn over the last several years that there's many states in the nation that don't require identification to vote. And a friend of mine's family joked with his grandfather from Southern Illinois as he lost the Senate race because they figured out that there were more grave sites in Chicago than there was in Southern Illinois. So I'm wondering what you would do as senator to straighten that disparity out across our nation so that everybody has an equal chance. And secondly, as a junior senator from Kentucky, in January we assume Harry Reid will want to be majority leader again. Will you vote for him?
Thank you for both of those questions. First, in terms of voting here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, unlike many other states, we do have identification laws. As I said in my comments, that have been working quite well. You have to be known by your precinct election officer, or you have to show your driver's license, social security card, a credit card, or a form of identification that has both your picture and ID. It has worked extremely well. I don't believe, especially here in Kentucky, that you build any additional barriers to the ballot box and amount to what is what many perceive as a poll tax in the form of a government-issued ID. I have fought fast and furiously against that and will continue to stand up to make sure that all eligible Kentuckians have the opportunity to vote. When you look at the voting laws around the United States, they are varied. That's why the work that we have done here in Kentucky to help our military and overseas voters is leading the nation, because we have simplified and streamlined the process. Voting rules are left to the state's decision, and I want to protect the sanctity of our states, our state sovereignty. I will always fight to make sure that the barriers to the ballot box are broken down, that we're protecting the integrity of the process as we have done, and that we're ensuring every eligible voter has the opportunity to have their voice heard. That is what is fundamental about being here in the United States, the opportunity that your vote is your voice. In terms of the Senate, one, I want to thank you for presuming the win already on November 4th. Would you call my husband and tell him that as well? I will do, always, with regard to whether it's a decision for who should be majority leader or legislation before the Senate. I will evaluate every decision on, is it best for Kentucky? Is it best for this state, our people? And I have my disagreements with the President, with Senator Reid, with other senators that are in the United States Senate. But what I believe I've shown, especially as Secretary of State, is the ability, the willingness, and the initiative to reach out across the aisle and to put the partisanship aside and actually work to get great things done for the people of Kentucky. That's what's been missing. The conversations aren't even happening. The initiative isn't even there. And the people who are suffering in the process are right here in Kentucky. So my thinking will be we will win this election on November 4th, and the decision that will be made is it best for the people of Kentucky? And I think that the 30 years that we have currently seen from our current senator, we're no better off. It's not working. The era of the earmark is over. We have to have someone that can actually reach out and work with others. And even his own caucus goes around him to get the bipartisan pieces of legislation accomplished. That's to the detriment of the people here in Kentucky. We have to have someone that can form coalitions, especially with other energy-producing states. Yes, sir?
Secretary Grimes, first of all, I'd like to say I compliment you on the website because I use it just about every day.
Can you tell everybody what it is?
No, I can't. it's on my favorites.
onestop.ky.gov. Come
I don't
on
have
now.
to remember it. It's on my favorites. Actually, I think today, I'm correct about today, is the deadline to file corporate tax returns. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of negative publicity about large American corporations legally relocating their domicile in other countries so as to avoid paying income tax. I would like to know what your policy would be if you get elected as United States Senator on that issue.
Great question. We were actually up in northern Kentucky yesterday before the Enquirer. My jobs plan, it has the pathway forward for Kentucky. And in it, it addresses the way that we actually pay for the growth that we need to see here in Kentucky. First, there's a cost to partisanship. Second, it's realizing that we have to actually end the tax breaks that over the course of 30 years our senator has provided that have encouraged businesses to go overseas. We have to close the loopholes that have benefited millionaires and billionaires. I've identified 5 that provide and show if we actually close them, it will bring in $75 billion over the course of the next 10 years. Things like supporting the Bring the Jobs Home Act, that's $200 million over 10 years. Things like making U.S. corporations that might be headquartered in the Cayman Islands, 18,000 companies in one 5-story building in the Cayman Islands, thanks to our current senator, making them realize that they should be treated as U.S. companies. I have been, as Secretary of State, in favor of lowering our corporate tax rate, but I think it has to be in conjunction with a comprehensive plan that also closes the loopholes and ends the tax breaks that we have seen that have shipped jobs overseas and only benefited millionaires and billionaires. That is how we ensure that we are keeping companies investing here in Kentucky, in the U.S., while paying, and especially the necessary taxes that are due to the government. But I do believe it will help us to lower that corporate tax rate, but it has to be done in conjunction with a comprehensive plan of making sure we close the loopholes and end the tax breaks that have thousands of jobs out of the state. onestop.ky.gov.
Thank you, Secretary Grimes, for being here. We also have 3 students from Fayette County Public Schools, so we have a pretty simple question.
Sure.
And that is, can you explain the difference between bureaucracy and government obstruction as it relates to these young ladies who will potentially become voters?
Well, can they introduce themselves?
Certainly.
Hi, my name is Brittany.
Cammy, correct?
I'm Kayla.
Thank you all very, very much for joining us. Y'all give them a round of applause. What we have seen, 3 branches of government. Government should be working together, your executive, judicial, and legislative branches. What we have now is gridlock that has caused what I believe is the president to wrongly be ruling by executive order. That's not how government is meant to work. Congress should be doing its job. As the legislative branch of government, it should be working to pass bills through the House, through the Senate, that make their way up to the president. The president shouldn't be having to rule by executive order. I think that's wrong. That's Congress not actually functioning for the people of Kentucky. What we have now, I believe, it's not helping the people in Kentucky, the people of this nation, the constant fighting. As my mama used to tell us, when she'd come in the room and the five of us would be going at it, she'd say, whose fault is it? We'd go like this. The blame game has not helped anyone. And what we are seeing now is the Washington insider, D.C. Beltway blame game coming back here to Kentucky that's not taking responsibility or initiative for the problems, the hurt, the harm that has been caused by the gridlock. Thank you each for being here this morning. And will any of you, this will be your first election for any of you to vote, or what ages? 17. So you won't be voting this election cycle. No, ma'am, no, ma'am. I hope, though, what you've gotten from today is, especially seeing the businesses that are here in this room, staying engaged matters. It matters for not just your business, but your family, for your future, and organizations like this. This is what civic involvement is all about. It doesn't just happen. It takes intentional acts of citizens across the Commonwealth, this nation, to finally put Kentucky and the country on the course and direction where it needs to be. You are the future. You will be the ones that will decide whether we will actually have a bureaucracy or a democracy, one that functions as it should, actually with our three branches of government working together for the people of Kentucky. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Secretary Grimes. If Kentucky had the best trained workforce in the country, we would be first and not last in so many of the things that we have problems in. What can we do as a state, what can you do as a U.S. Senator to help Kentucky have the best trained workforce in the country?
That is part of our jobs plan. It's an action-oriented jobs plan. I'll encourage everybody, besides onestop.ky.gov, that you're going to go out here and just type in those phones and save as your favorite, Alison for Kentucky. That's where our jobs plan is located. You can get an electronic copy of it there. It says that we need to train our workers not just for the jobs of today, but for the jobs of tomorrow. That requires a senator that doesn't want to slash job training funding, as our current senator has done. The training funding that we've previously had, it's half of what it used to be, and we've got a senator that wants to take it down even further. When I look at the people across Kentucky, it's not just statistics that I see. These are some of the strongest and especially smartest individuals who want to work. They just need the way forward to work. And job training programs are key. The work in conjunction with our community and technical colleges, especially key to having a workforce that can attract businesses here to the Commonwealth. Before we can bring those businesses, though, we have to have the infrastructure, the roads, the bridges. Voting against a transportation bill that would bring that much-needed funding here to Kentucky, well, that's not in our interest either. This is a comprehensive plan that addresses not just advocating for our families and veterans, like not voting against the Family Medical Leave Act or women actually earning equal pay for equal work, but the infrastructure needs that we have to have, from our roads to our bridges to connectivity across the Commonwealth. That all has an impact on how we train our future workforce. I do believe it can be done. I do believe we have the best and the brightest here, especially in eastern and western Kentucky. Our coal miners, many of whom have been out of work due to no fault of their own, they are some of the strongest mechanics, machine operators that are out there, and engineers. They need a pathway forward, and this jobs plan, that's the pathway forward, by making sure we're increasing the funding for job training programs and putting our best and brightest back to work. Thank you very, very much.
Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here. One of my hobbies is cooking, and what goes along with that is sometimes doing the grocery shopping. And without fail, when I'm at the grocery store and bring my cart up to the register, there is a person who is using a WIC card and has a grocery cart full of junk food and very poor choices. If you were to serve in the Senate, how would you approach this situation?
Well, would you mind if I give you my grocery shopping list to go get done? That's something that my husband has not seen a lot of lately from me. It was pizza last night that we ordered in. I sit on the board of God's Pantry Food Bank. I know the thousands here in Kentucky that are struggling. 750,000 Kentuckians don't know where their next meal is going to come from. We helped in the General Assembly to provide what I believe is some good relief, and that's giving our businesses, especially our farmers, finally the incentive, the tax incentive, to donate their food to food banks. That's good government. That's what I know firsthand. I also know the facts, and the farm bill that was recently passed, the funding that was in there for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as SNAP, I'm not for reducing that funding because I know the thousands of Kentuckians that are needing that funding here in Kentucky. We're talking about $4 a day. Ann McBrayer and I were just talking about what $4 a day gets you in the Starbucks that's in the lobby. This is the livelihood that has helped many of our veterans, thousands of veterans, actually survive. This is also what helps to put funding into the pockets of our farmers because the products that are being purchased are the Kentucky Proud products that are on the shelves in our grocery stores. And as far as what was in the basket in front of you, I can tell you sometimes I don't make the best choices. If somebody looked in my car right now, they'd see I got a lot of Swedish fish and every candy that's out there. But I don't know that that's the role of government to be stepping in and encroaching on the choices that people make at the grocery store. But I do want to make sure the 750,000 Kentuckians here in this state, many of them that I know, they'll have a senator that will stand up and fight for them.
Madam Secretary, respectfully, I heard the advertisement where you indicated that you would never vote for amnesty. Have you considered the impact on the millions of people who are legal dependents of those who might be evicted and the considerable damage to business and the economy if these America Seekers were removed from supporting our industry, our government, and the people we care about?
Great question. Would you mind telling me your name?
John Larson.
Thank you, John, very, very much for that question. $50 million. That is what's been spent against me. And negative, nasty ads. An ad every 5 minutes. I know you've seen them from nonprofit entities that have no donors here in Kentucky. That's the amazing work of Citizens United that our senator championed. That's what he believes democracy should be. I don't think it should be up for sale. I think the people of this state should decide, and you should know where I stand. When it comes to our state, I realize, unlike our current senator, that comprehensive immigration reform is necessary. He stood in the way, voted against a bipartisan piece of legislation that came out of the Senate. I disagree with that. I will not do that. I believe that immigration reform is necessary, but it has to be an earned pathway to citizenship. We have to secure our borders because that is having an impact here in Kentucky. It doesn't just stop at the borders. The backyards here in the Commonwealth are affected, and if you don't believe it, you just have to look to the prescription drug epidemic that we have here in the Commonwealth. But I think we have to have an earned pathway to citizenship. You've got a good job. You have a background check, you learn English, you pay your taxes. That's the American way. That's what our senator voted against, when in fact, back several years ago, he voted to give amnesty to over 3 million undocumented immigrants. I realize what he doesn't. 4% of the workforce here in Kentucky, they are undocumented immigrants. I realize they are already paying sales tax that has a positive impact in our economy. I realize if we have comprehensive immigration reform, it will be a success for the people here in Kentucky and for our economy. I realize and I believe we need to have a senator that can go to Washington and work in the bipartisan manner to actually get that good piece of legislation, not just out of the Senate, but hopefully through the House as well. And I look forward to working with Congressman John Yarmuth, who was part of the group of senators that came together to try to put that comprehensive immigration reform together. Thank you, John, very, very much. All right, I think Dana is ringing a bell, if there ever is a bell, or Carla's ringing a bell up here. Is there a bell we've got to ring? I didn't know if it's like Rotary where we got a four-way test. Guys, thank you all very, very much for a great start to the morning. I hope that despite the $50 million in negative, nasty ads. You do realize what the three young ladies that are here today, this morning, show. And that is that you have the opportunity to take Kentucky, you have the opportunity to take this nation in a course that it has been yearning for, in a direction that the people of Kentucky need. We've done amazing work together in the Office of Secretary of State, and I do believe in the United States Senate we will bring the change to Washington that's needed and break through the partisan gridlock that has hurt the Commonwealth and our people for far too long. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Secretary Grimes. We appreciate your time, and we have breakfast for you. Better late than never. Thanks also to all of you for being here, and a special thanks to our sponsors. Also wanted to thank Ken Sagan, who is Commerce Lexington Board Chair, for his leadership. We appreciate all of you for being here, and I think Secretary Grimes will be here maybe for a couple more minutes to shake hands and meet and greet people before she's off to her next event. Thank you very much.